Oh, GM, Coin Bureau Trading Fam. Excited to be back here again with you guys. My name, of course, is Nick. I'm being joined by Guy and Mariano, aka the Trading Parrot. Both of me and Guy are hosts on Coin Bureau. So, gentlemen, how are you? How are you doing? Happy Friday.
Very good, very good. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. Over 100K.
Happy Friday, guys.
Yeah, over 100K. Finally got there again. Before we kick off, quickly, just want to let you guys know, obviously, as is the past live streams with me and Aaron and Guy, and me, Dan and Guy, we will occasionally jump on the Coin Bureau Trading channel to hear live from our traders, to get the alpha from them on the ground in the charts. And I think that it's also important to note that we also look in and want to welcome other traders or streamers who wanted to join us or join our trading traders to hear from them on the fly about what's going on in the crypto markets. So if you guys do want to reach out and potentially come on a stream with one of our traders, we will leave a link down below where you can reach out to our COO, Raheem, and get in touch with him over there. So before we dive into the stream today, I want to first kick off. We want to first hear from Mariano, of course, because he's got a really interesting background. And I don't know how many of you on Coin Bureau Trading have heard about Mariano's background and how he got into crypto. And so we'll go into that for a few minutes, and then we'll dive right into some charts. We've got exciting charts to look at: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, SUI, and XRP.
Yep.
Mariano, take it away.
Okay. So with the background, well, I got a pretty mixed background. It seems like every 10 years I completely change with the topics. I have an engineering background. I spent many years in university. I spent years also teaching computer science, and that was around 5 years. And then I switched to bioinformatics, and I spent like 6 to 8 years doing bioinformatics, doing genoma of the peach, the fruit. And that was in Chile, in South America. And once we ran out of cash for continuing doing that with the government, I moved into software development, mobile applications. At that time, iOS, Android, and all the apps was just booming with the new app store and stuff. And I did that for 10 years. And my last role was in HSBC. And at that point, I was getting really interested in trading, particularly applying all my knowledge of coding and software engineering, and thinking I might as well, create a bot that makes me money. Why not? And this is the time to use my skills to potentially just do it overnight while I'm sleeping. And you might be wondering, where are you? Well, I'm doing manual trading, so that might answer some questions. Manual trading has been for me better than trading with bots, and that is controversial, but it's also a result of spending endless hours understanding the data, understanding how the markets work, rather than just giving it to the bot with a few mathematical equations that sometimes can fail. And trading bots can do amazing, but sometimes they can also make mistakes, just like human beings.
And Mariano, I have to ask, the Trading Parrot, where does that name come from?
Oh, that's a silly one. I'm very verbose. Some people love that. Some people hate that. Particularly the people with a busy lifestyle. They're like, can you get to the point, please? and I continue finding new rabbit holes in the data that are leading us to potential new alpha, and that can take hours or days. And so my wife told me one day, "You're like a parrot. You talk like a parrot," and I started, liking that thing, a parrot, because I'm also a bit goofy, and although it doesn't necessarily show when I'm doing the analysis, but I have a goofy side. I have a humor sense, black humor, and I like that. So that mix gave me the nick. And when it was the time to put a name to the channel, there was alternatives like parrot investing or the trading parrot, and parrot investing was a little bit too serious for me, so I went for the trading parrot.
Great. Wow. Great. It's a great name. It stands out. Okay, well, let's get into it, Mariano, because we are approaching. I mean, this is a big weekend coming up. Obviously, Monday is a big day for crypto, as we can discuss a little later on. So let's get into it. Let's start with the big daddy. Let's start with Bitcoin. What are your thoughts? What are the charts saying to you for BTC at the moment?
People that watch my channel probably think I'm constantly contrarian. I don't think it's the case. If you watch videos, all videos, sometimes I'm trading the trend. In this case, in this area in here, we've been the past 2 months with one goal, which is to build a new position after having taken profits at the highs with the swing trade, with the breakout of the megaphone pattern, a trade that took 8 months, literally. So we took profits, and then we say, well, we're going to go back somewhere into the bull market support band. We might as well sweep the lows, like I borrowed from Benjamin Cowen in the stream the other day. And at the moment, what I'm doing is basically a bit regretting that I didn't enter with more volume, because I had 3 orders, one order at 91.8 and one order somewhere at 89, somewhere around 89, and then at the 75. And I was speculating that somewhere there we're going to see a reversal, particularly because I'm still with the eye keen on this liquidity that spans all the way to 127K. So I have bullishness at the moment. I'm bullish on this. I'm bullish on all this liquidity that there is there. But where do I currently stand? I'm a bit concerned with how 103K could treat us in the shorter term. And that is coming from a few sources. I covered that extensively the morning, so I'm just going to give you kind of the executive summary, which is we have this short-term liquidity that ends when 103K ends. We also have this oscillator that is based on net longs versus shorts, and we are at the top of the range. And I'm building this channel. This is a new channel I built since December, and we are above the channel. Typically, at that point, Bitcoin has some pullback. And there are other aspects, like the ask liquidity is increasing, the longs are coming down. We could go into more detail, but there are some elements that are of my concern at the moment at 103. Just that particular level of liquidation that we had there. And as you can see, there is a big reduction in terms of liquidity levels as soon as we get over 103, because after that we need to do a jump into 105 to catch the next. So that could be enough for a decent pullback. And when we get that pullback, what I like to do is to analyze if the pullback is going to throw us too deep, or if it's going to just reverse and continue. And on my swing trade, I'm still with the swing trade open. You can see that on the breakout in here, we are above that resistance. And I'm looking into what we did in 2021, which is, we broke out there on the 29th of January, but then we came back down, and that was a fake out. And then in February, actually, we broke out. So I'm a bit concerned that we could do something like this and eventually later do it after. And that is just a heads up that I'm currently sharing with people in my channel as well.
Okay, so concerns around that 103K level, which we are currently at, or $80 below, as I'm looking at the moment. So, and your thinking is, Mariano, that there's as you've shown with these heat maps, it's all coming down to liquidity in these situations.
Liquidity is a big factor, I will say. There are other things that I consider. Definitely, I look into the macro and the economy. I'm looking specifically today that I got new data, for example, with the Federal Reserve. I have a new candle. I get these candles late because on TradingView, they are published once a week, and you usually see 1 week late what they did. But seeing the Federal Reserve adding to their balance sheet for the second time in this area, it's, to me, if I'm trading this, I will think that this is a double bottom formation, and I have a breakout over the neck. And I've been for months hoping that we have a breakout in here in this direction. Because if we get a breakout in that direction, we could start speculating that we can get similar moves on Bitcoin as we did from the bottom of the bear market, where we have this U-turn that kick off the bull market, or these breakouts that you have in here or there, which were the most bullish legs of 2019, 2020, in the bull rally of the previous cycle. So those are great things. I also look at what's going on with China. China adding liquidity is always something sexy that I'm not gonna ignore and let pass. That could help not just Bitcoin, but particularly the altcoins are very, very thirsty of liquidity right now.
Mariano, I just have a question. So the top there, that's obviously the Federal Reserve balance sheet. And it's interesting that you run in, now this may be potentially a philosophical question, I suppose, around the merits of TA when it relates to particular, prices. In this case, it's the balance sheet, the size of the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. So my question is, are you obviously, you obviously do an analysis on it because in the past it has, confirmed according to a particular chart pattern.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't it generally, from my understanding, technical analysis is sentiment driven, and a lot of the way people do an analysis on these charts confirm particular levels or not because of the fact that they're actually trading it themselves, in the sense that the whole basis of technical analysis is around sentiment of the market participants. In this case, there are no market participants because it's just a balance sheet.
It's true. And I trade all sorts of things. I do technical analysis even on the greed and fear index, and I trade breakouts of those elements because in my opinion, that is not price, there's no volume, and there are a bunch of elements that invalidate it as an actual tradable setup, but they have an influence. And they if you see the balance sheet taking a big move up, that is liquidity injected into the market, and that spreads across the general markets and eventually lands in the crypto space. There is a delay in a similar fashion when you look at the global M2. People say, well, M2 was shrinking from September, and we should be expecting 2 to 3 months of delay of Bitcoin doing something similar, coming down. And Bitcoin was still rallying in here. So as speculators, people that monitor this thing, well, they might not necessarily put levels of support and resistance and get so technical with it, but still they think, oh, it's coming down. Bitcoin at some point has to give up and start correcting. So in that sense, I feel entitled to, and I feel it works for me. I trade things that are not supposed to be traded with success, I will say.
Very interesting. And what are your go-to indicators again? Because I know you on your website, the Trading Parrot, you've got a few indicators and timeframes. Can you just take us through your go-to toolbox for your TA?
So when I started trading manually, I had an overload of data and complexity paralysis that was my main difficulty to take that step out of the bots and into the manual trading. I had too much stuff, too much complexity. And some people might say I still have. What I wanted to do with particularly with my trading style is I say, I'm going to do it publicly. I'm going to do it in my channel, and I'm going to show all my deficiencies, and I'm going to learn as I do it publicly in the channel. And I'm going to become better thanks to all the support, all the people giving me feedback. And my first step was I want to remove rubbish. These indicators are too much noise. I'm just going to go with RSI. And I'm going to force myself to learn to trade with RSI. And every now and then, I'm going to pull in some additional things, but I'm going to stick with the basics. Because one thing I was jealous of great traders is that they can trade almost naked candles, just seeing price action. And I was like, wow, these guys are really gurus. I want to learn that. I suppose I shouldn't be relying so much in indicators. So I made it a lot easier by just looking at RSI. And I said my two elements are the RSI and the liquidity. Because the liquidity is going to show me motivation. The RSI is going to say how strong is the momentum. So how much is the acceleration? And all those two things together are my first two layer. I cannot live without that. If you take those things, I cannot start walking funny. And the rest of the things are all appreciated. I look into on-chain data, like what are the long-terms doing, long-term holders doing, what's going on with the moves of USDT, and how much is it parked at the moment in stable coins, the fear and greed index. And then there's a long list of on-chain data and advanced kind of charting that kind of I see at the moment as a bit cheating, right? Because some of them are really good. And I explain all of that in the stream, and I end up using the RSI as the final, bullet. If I had a setup and I see already liquidity coming into the system, I see people in extreme fear, and I see kind of a good scenario for a potential bullish breakout, then my RSI is my final confirmation, and the liquidity is kind of my target. My explanation of why should we go there.
And when it comes to actually placing trades, be it to the long or the short, which the levels are informed most specifically by which indicators, or you look at the moving averages on what daily, what time frames. If you were to think about structuring your orders, how would they be informed?
That's an interesting one. So I care about levels of support and resistance. So for that, I go to the weekly, daily timeframes, and I place my lines. And that is, to have an overall look at the market. But then something that people find interesting is that I do something, a mathematical formula that translates values of RSI into their corresponding price value. That's why it's called reverse RSI. So, for example, I'll give you an example. Solana, for example, broke this support on the RSI, and it formed a double bottom formation somewhere in here on the weekly, and it could be rallying towards resistance at an RSI, let's say, of 65. Because if you place this line like this, and you measure the high of that, and you put it like there, I see by looking at this that we could have a rally into resistance on Solana, and we are stepping into 28. But by getting to that number 65 doesn't tell me price. So I need to go into my reverse RSI indicator, enable it, and then introduce a target of 65 here. And that is going to draw a line telling me that we could be heading to $271, which is awesome for Solana. And that is still just a rally against resistance. That's thanks to this being on the weekly time frame. You can get a rally that might take many weeks to get there. But if we just get to the resistance, that's already $270. And from where we are at 218. So that's a nice swing. With the risk right below at 182.
Got it, man. Mm-hmm. So I think it's obviously very fascinating. I think let's move on, because you can talk about Bitcoin the whole day, I'm sure. But yes. I'm sure there's some long-suffering ETH holders out there, most like, including Guy, who would like to know exactly what's going on with ETH. Whether we have any chance this year of reclaiming those all-time highs.
Or he might not.
Don't say that, Mariano.
So yeah, man, if you can take us through what's going on each side.
So with Ethereum, early this week, I was worried. I remember with Ethereum, we were pending below the support of this line in here on the RSI weekly. We had a breakout. It was bullish. That was 28th of October, and we reached a top of 66 on the RSI. Since then, we have been coming back for a retest of support on the weekly, and that took since early December until Monday, which I think we bottomed, and the RSI was somewhere in here. And I was, oh my God, we're going to break out just like we did with Solana. Solana already did it. It has been underperforming. And Ethereum managed now to hold that support. And I'm also seeing that in the price action, we are in an area. Sorry, my chart is too busy. Let's remove some things. And let's remove the volume weighted moving average in these lines as well. I remember a couple of weeks ago when we were above this line of resistance, I was saying, if we come back to the scene of the crime to 3.6K, 3.7K, and we break below it, there are different gradients of bearishness. If we stick to above 3.5, it's very bullish. It's very likely that we are going to continue hammering 4K and we're going to continue up very quickly. If we enter into the second section between 3.5 and 3, we are kind of mild, okay? We're still putting higher low. And what did we do? We ended up coming into the horrible area. I call this area horrible, and I call this area the end. And this is horrible. We touch horrible, but we came out horrible, and we came back into it's okay. Okay, so we have a higher low. So now we are due. I think that the chances are larger that we are going to have to put a higher high. So we got this low, that high. Now the job of Ethereum is to break this and hold it and stop doing silly things and, you know, fake outs and stuff like that. So this is the time for Ethereum to shine. After 3 attempts, that's enough. I'm not gonna wait for a fourth. If I see weakness at the 4, I'm gonna just sell my bag and whatever. We need to get to 5K, and I think it's doable thanks to this candle. If we close on Sunday, that will be lovely. And on the daily time frame, I'm gonna show you something cool, which is on the RSI. If we place this line like this, on the daily, we are still against that resistance. So let's just focus on this point, that point, and this point there. And I would love to see that today we close breaking out that area. So that will be an early indication on the daily time frame that we can actually overcome 3.5 and then the resistance from 3.7 and then continuing towards the 5K, which is kind of the next target that I have in mind at the moment. So it's not that bad overall.
Yeah, I think ETH holders would, myself included, would be overjoyed with 5K at the moment. I think that's, you know, yeah. I think talk of 10K I think is has died down somewhat, but yeah, 5K is I think a level we're all watching. But yeah, I mean, ETH is just continuing to struggle, isn't it? And I mean, in terms of sentiment, which you mentioned earlier, Mariano, I mean, sentiment for ETH is about as bad as I've ever seen it, I think.
Yeah, but also I remember in 2020 the amount of cash that retail had in their pockets, and I tend to be a little bit more forgiving with Ethereum at the moment and with some other coins, because there's a too diluted ecosystem of altcoins, one, and there's too little people with real cash, and institutions are having a blast, right? But people are not. People are thinking, yeah, sure, I have a few $100s to put into this, and the rest is for paying the rent, the electricity, the gas, you know, the heating in the winter, and Christmas gifts and all that stuff, and that's why they're struggling. I'm looking at a liquidation at 4.1 to 4.2 on Ethereum. Some people are asking me why you don't look at liquidation levels on altcoins. That's just because then my videos are going to be 3 hours long. But there is a liquidation here spanning to 4.2, and if we look below the price, there is a 2K. So I think that's out of the bull market reach. And I think we should now be going into this. It ends at 4.4. So keep that number in mind, guy, if you are looking for an exit. If these are living charts, okay? So what you take a picture here is today. By tomorrow, if the price is here, you might see red all over the place, maybe up until there. And we saw that on Bitcoin as we were coming up in here. Every time we had a retracement, the shorts were again insisting in shorting. And every time they insist too much, they made it just too easy for the price to cut like a hot knife into butter, right? And in here, at the moment, we have good a good chance that we can get into 4.2, 4.4. But if those shorts, I'm always trying to convince shorts to short because they make it much easier for us, the longs, then to reach higher. So maybe in a month time, if we see all of this in red, maybe I can come back to you and tell 4.4 is too little. We can go even into 5 or into 6 because they just went too crazy with the shorts, making it too easy.
So some optimism for the ETH holders then.
Yeah.
I guess though the most important question though is not just ETH, but ETH versus BTC, right? Because that's, I don't know if you've done any analysis on that recently, but that's one that many people are pointing at in terms of ETH performance generally.
Yeah, we can look into Ethereum. I think I have already a chart with that. Let me see. ETHBTC. Yeah, there you go. So it's been bleeding, but at the moment it's putting a higher low. And it's been really, I have to say, it's been really difficult to trade the ETHBTC just because it's every time it puts something bullish, then it invalidates. You can tell that a few months ago I left this forecast in here. It has already broken and we need to shift it down again, which is super annoying. I think once we get that liquidity, once we get the liquidity from the Fed, we see a top on the dollar, which I also have charts for that, and gold tops as well. The best, it will be a combination of all those factors. But if we get 2 or 3 of those factors, definitely I'm going to have a positive impact in more risk on assets like Ethereum. And at the moment, yes, we see some rallies. We see rallies with XRP and Solana, but those are just rallies because of news that are making them bullish. And eventually those traders could be taking profits, right? So on an XRP last year, there was a rally as well. There was a Trump rally, and the Trump rally didn't last 24 hours. I'm not saying that's the case now. It might last longer, but it's not rallying because there is a lot of cash coming into the system for this. It's just speculative rallies. That's my humble opinion. And Ethereum is going to need that extra cash to start moving. One of those elements is the Fed adding to their balance sheet from 3.1 trillion to 3.4 something. That is something. Of course, we want more to see a huge pump in here, but I think we can have definitely a rally into 0.05. That ratio there is calling. I'm just copying the previous performance as a fractal in here and thinking how high we can get. We got that resistance at 0.05. And I remember talking a potential top at 0.06, but now that we needed to shift this, initially was there. Now it's a little bit lower. I have to extend this line. Let me explain these Fibonacci levels. Those are totally worth it. In previous cycles, Ethereum rallies against Bitcoin. And if you use a Fibonacci extension, tracking that top to the bottom of the bear market, you get the next top, right? So this 0.5 there is the next top. So my speculation is, well, maybe we're going to get the same performance of Ethereum against BTC. Let's take the top of 2021. Let's find a bottom that never seems to end, because I keep every month moving it down, like if we were in a bear market of Ethereum. And that is dragging down that target. And now it's perfectly matching with 0.06. So you have to take that number and think, if Bitcoin gets to 200K, right? how high can it get Ethereum? Well, multiply by 6, and get your number. Or if it's slightly below, I need to extend this like that. Yeah, that will match the Fibonacci, and it's giving us 0.06. So that's kind of the target in a nutshell.
Optimistic, man. Optimistic. Okay, so you've alluded to it obviously already. You've mentioned some of those altcoins, and you had one of the charts on earlier. So let's dive now then into Solana. Sol, of course, the darling from the last year. Keen to see what's going on here, because obviously both me and Guy do hold Sol. I hold a big bag of it. So curious as to what you see going on in the Sol charts, mate.
I'm gonna keep the analysis on Solana on the weekly. So I'm bullish on this double bottom formation, and I want to see on the daily, on the RSI. Sorry, is this daily? Yep. I want to see this breakout holding there. We already have the breakout, and what we want is the RSI not to fake out, obviously, to come back there. That will put the trade in danger. But Solana is promising in terms of the daily. The weekly is looking hot with this double bottom formation, but just giving some context, the rally of Solana at the moment is against resistance of the weekly. So we need to keep in mind and watch out for that level around, I think I say $270, if I remember right. That is kind of interesting. I also wanted to, on Solana, to mention something very cool that is currently going on against Ethereum. So if you guys are familiar with ratios, I'm doing the ratio of Solana against Ethereum just to see the valuation of Solana priced in Ethereum. And what we did recently is we exit the range where pretty much Solana has been trapped all his life inside this range. And around October, it broke out very bullish. It put this high, then another higher high, and then we retest at 0.06. And then we came back inside the range. At that point, I was like, gosh, Solana is just going to hell. If we lose this support there, we didn't, at 0.05, we were risking literally, a journey back down at the bottom of the range. That's what the theory says, not what the market wants, obviously. But it bounced, it held, and now it's exiting again from the top of the range. I think that is mainly a result of the news from Trump with the, what is it called? Help me here, guys. It's called
reserve, the crypto reserve that he's going
the
to
crypto reserve.
Yeah.
Which I think is going to include Solana. And it being that the case against Ethereum, of course, is gaining momentum and reaching the 0.06. This is a very, very important and critical level to watch, because we held that at 0.07 to 3 weeks. And then we have an impulsive move into 0.08. And then we came back down. Bitcoin caused this. My opinion is that Bitcoin started correcting. No. This was in November, right? Bitcoin started correcting mid-December. So people started probably looking into Bitcoin and rotating into Bitcoin with the pump. And that initiated something. And then Bitcoin started correcting in December. And that caused a little bit more bleeding of Solana. But what we need to do now is overcome the 0.07, break that, and show that we can put a new high in here to confirm it. And I'm going to keep this line in there in case we revisit it later. But this is showing that, again, Solana is having more strength against Ethereum, which is annoying me. My bag is larger of Ethereum relative to Solana. And people were asking me, are you going to rotate to Solana when we were here? And I replied, no. And I was super happy with this correction because I got my Ethereum bag to pump. And now it's the same story again.
I'm curious in terms of that particular point when you said, okay, Bitcoin rallied, it corrected, and that must have been people moving out of Solana. But this is the Sol ETH chart. So they were moving out of Solana on a price basis. ETH was outperforming Solana in that period. So I'm curious what exactly in that period. I mean, it could be fundamental. It could have been the ETF flows, could have been narrative. But from just to hear from you, what do you think it could have been that led to the people flowing out of Sol into ETH, or at least in terms of price?
So when Bitcoin rallies, people think, okay, if this rally is healthy and it holds, I'm going to get ready for rotating those profits either on stablecoin, or I'm going to move down in the market cap to Ethereum and then Solana and like that. And as soon as the bell rings, there's a breakout on Bitcoin above 70K, and we're going to maybe over 100K. People, okay, dump everything into Bitcoin, hold there, catch the move up, find the bull flag, rotate to Ethereum. And I think people were preparing for that Ethereum rotation. They were bullish on Ethereum, and they were saying Ethereum probably is bottoming here. Let's stop doing silly things with meme coins or whatever. Let's just follow the typical path of the flow of the crypto. And Ethereum did something. It revisited the 4K, but then it got rejected again. And that is where we are now. So it didn't play out by the book, by what people were expecting. And I suspect that this rally that we are seeing now is just a U-turn that people are taking because there's an opportunity based on this news. They're trading the news. They're thinking, okay, it's going to be really positive for US-based altcoins. Let's trade that.
Do you see, Mariano? Do you get a sense that that people are maybe with Sol sort of trying to front run an ETF approval at some point this year? Obviously, Sol is one of the ones that is talked about the most in terms of what might be next to get an ETF. Are you already seeing that in the charts, or do you think that's not priced in yet?
So I think we were talking about the Solana ETF approval for a while, and that has been a narrative even when Solana was bleeding against Ethereum. I even get some comments of people saying you are delusional to say that Ethereum is outperforming now Solana. They don't see it because they don't do the ratio, but it was bleeding. And at the time that it was bleeding, people were saying, how can it be bleeding if we are potentially going to approve an ETF? There's the ETF approval, but you guys are a lot more fundamentals than me. And I understand that there is also the speculation that BlackRock didn't want the Solana ETF, or they kind of rejected they didn't file the submission for the ETF, if I remember right, and the rest did. So there is that fundamental, and there is that negative aspect that BlackRock might have not filed for the Solana. So it's kind of unbalanced against what the others are doing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we should stick with kind of US-based altcoins because, as you mentioned, Mariano, there's a lot of excitement around them at the moment. Obviously, with Trump being inaugurated on Monday, it seems like, and there's speculation that some US-based altcoins, including Sol, may be added to this, to this idea of some sort of crypto reserve that the US is many think the US is going to create. Mm-hmm. So I think it's worth talking about SUI and one other, which we'll get to afterwards. But yeah, what do you make of SUI at the moment? Because obviously this has been a really strong performer over the last few months.
It's very impressive indeed. Yeah. SUI has had, we could say, two rallies. One rally into March and then one rally into December. And I've been trying to make out something of what happened in the first rally and use that as past performance, which we all know past performance is not necessarily an indicative, but it's kind of a guide. So in case SUI got tempted to do the same thing, at least we are keeping an eye on that. That's kind of the spirit. And in March, it had a perfect rally. A perfect rally, I call it, because the RSI is just bouncing off the trend line. And eventually in February, it breaks down. Let's see if we can focus on the price as well. In here. Okay, so it broke down in there. And you can see, I typically, when we break down on the RSI, I say we have lost an element of momentum. We are kind of deflated now in momentum. And then we have a lower high on the RSI, but the price did a higher low. Sorry, a higher high. I'm getting confused. And that's a bearish divergence, right? And that's what I call rolling over, or I also call it sometimes like we are going to start a channel to the downside. And on a channel to the downside on the RSI, sometimes the price can continue putting highs, but each high gets more broken, less performance relative to the previous one, and that is also part of the bearish divergence period when you're producing them. And what I'm looking is for something similar. I'm trying to see if SUI is going to trick us all into doing the same trick. And we broke down in December. We have done the retest that corresponds to this retest in March, and we have a double bottom. And in here, we did that lower high, and then we have a big sell-off there. And just for your awareness, that sell-off eventually stopped, but it stopped when it was ahead of almost 80%. So it was a sell-off in the middle of the bull market, 80%. So my takeaway here is that SUI has very impulsive moves that are very impressive, but it can also sell off big. So in this area in here, I'm calling it elevated risk. And we are on the cross-V ratio as well in the same area. We have an excessive amount of longs, and it's kind of the perfect equation to trap them. It is not guaranteed. It could do another high easily and still continue in my channel down there. And so that's why I'm thinking possibly to rotate some of my SUI into something else, or just take it into USDT. So there's multiple options. Still, we haven't broken this double bottom formation, so it's kind of in a yellow warning at the moment. I will say all eyes on what SUI does in case it disappoints around there. And one of the alternatives, and this is not financial advice, okay, this could play out really bad, and I might not even do it if I decide that I see something bad about this setup. But here I have SUI against Solana, and it was also oscillating. So you could have perfectly swing from one to the other, and make incredible profits because you time the moment where you need to go back all into Sol, go back into SUI, go back into Sol, and do perfectly all year long. And at the moment, we got one breakdown there that happened on the 21st of October. That is one warning. And as you can see, it didn't play out. It went down, how much? It went down 40%. So that is already some performance, but it continued to rally against resistance and managed to put highs and getting very close to the extension of 1618, which it tends to be a good area for taking profits, and is being rejected somewhere close to that and risking to lose these lows of 0.0215 against the valuation in Solana and coming down. So if I put this line now, let me put the line in a different way. This is what I call a breakdown layer 2. And we got 1, 2, 3 times that we hold. And again, that is another move down that is kind of we don't want that. That's not bullish. That is alert number 2. You got it. And this is a trading is nothing guaranteed. So you get alerts, you get data, you decide what you do. Okay, it might play out as you rotate it into Solana and you miss some profits. You rotate it into USDT, you lock down your profits. If you have big profits, you lock them down, and it might rally a little bit more, and you might end up looking at it and say, oh, there it goes, but it's part of the game. Personally, when I see elevated risk that I don't want to consume, I just have a plan and I say I'm going to something else. Like with XRP, I sold at 2.8 because my long-term plan was to sell there. And it can rally to $100. I don't care. There's so many opportunities that by the time it reaches $100, I'm going to be focused on those other opportunities by then.
Mariano, I just have a question that potentially also pertains to your trading strategy more broadly around alts. And it seems that this ratio analysis informs your decision when it comes to rotating to one or the other. And obviously, this is on the longer time frame, which makes sense. But I'm curious in terms of shorter term time frames in terms of trading. Do you ever look and consider doing trading called pairs trading, in the sense that if you're looking at trading ratios, long on the one, short the other, using perps?
Yeah, I have worked extensively, pretty much a year with a partner on building this sort of bots. I created indicators to tell me where is the perfect entry. They work fairly well, but I always come back to the manual trading. But yeah, answering your question, definitely that's a great way to reduce risks. But you need, similarly to trading manual and trading in a normal trade, which is only long or only short in a single asset, you still need to manage your risk, because when you're doing these ratios, you're long in one coin, short in another coin. If they are oscillating against each other and they have all these mathematical, statistical properties that takes so long to analyze. But anyways, once you identify the opportunity, it's got statistically a very good quality to give you those profits. But if it goes against you, it can be hell as well. Because you're taking the short, you're taking the long, and the statistics are telling you that has a 99.99999 probability that it's going to go in your favor. But if it doesn't, and you don't have the stop loss, and there's a market crash or a huge pump on Bitcoin, suddenly you have two positions going against you at double the speed. And if there's no stop loss and no plan whatsoever, you just see two red positions augmenting, the loss. So definitely, yes, it's great to use statistics and maths in your favor and use those things, but always never say never. That's kind of the final.
Yeah, speaking from experience, it's difficult to set a stop loss for two positions, because obviously the trade is the one versus the other, and the software on exchanges doesn't. You'll have to utilize external APIs and bots to do that, which most people don't have access to. So I think let's move on to the final coin. Obviously, we've alluded to it a few times now, and I'm sure many people, watching are keen to see our analysis here, because it is to the star of the show right now. It's occupying so much mind share. Going to potentially be in a reserve, get an ETF. So let's look at XRP.
Yeah, let's do that. So XRP, disclaimer, I sold it, and I'm happy still that I sold it. I sold it at 2.8 and this peak here, and I put it on Twitter, and I was so proud because I was waiting for years for this moment. And I thought my analysis at that point is it might go to $2, and if it holds at that level, it's going to build a flag. And I want to see a breakout from a flag. And if we do that, we're going to get this extension that just using the length of the flag there and placing it from the lows. And that gives you $4.4. And as an additional analysis, we get the lows of March 2020, the highs of April 2021, and this Fibonacci extension at $3.3. So publicly, I've been repeating my two targets are conservative 3.3 and then 4.4. Those are targets for this setup. I'm not even thinking how high this could get end of bull market. That's another analysis. But if you are into this trade with the swing and you enter somewhere in there, my 3-3 is already a conservative exit. I didn't enter into that because I say I'm forbidden to touch XRP ever again. Every time it does these pumps and you see, I think it was on the MACD. Let me bring in the MACD. MACD, where are you? Yeah, here. And if we put it on weekly, so let's see what the MACD is doing now based on the full history. And I'm not sure if this is the full history because this is listed on Binance, but we got a fair amount of time. So 2018, we got into 0.29, and now we are doubling that. This if it's not a top, it might not be a top. We might get to $10, but we are going to remember this peak just like we did that one. It's in my opinion, XRP is putting a blow of top. So I'll be careful with thinking I'm going to just hold it forever. Non-financial advice, I'm happy to be absolutely wrong, and no rage comments. You don't need to. This is my call. It affects me. I'm going to miss out. So you enjoy your profits. But I'll look at this as a potential blow of top of XRP. Maybe Bitcoin didn't put a blow of top in 2021. Maybe XRP puts one now. That is possible because XRP didn't get the chance to get one in here due to regulations and other things going on. So potentially this is the time for XRP to do something like that.
So do you think, Mariano, because I mean, I was talking about this on with Ben and Rob on NFA Live yesterday. We were talking about XRP, and we were talking about some of the catalysts that have sort of helped drive it over the past few weeks. Obviously, Ripple itself being an American company, Brad Garlinghouse having dinner with Trump, etc., etc. But I mean, the main strength with XRP to me seems to be its community. And like I said yesterday, any community that can hold for this long is clearly pretty tough. Do you think at this stage, like, XRP is kind of almost decoupling from any fundamentals? Is it just like running purely now on speculation, and can go higher than many people think as a result of that?
So my thinking is very simple. I think XRP has a strong community, and I've seen it. Okay, every time I talk about XRP, I get the pleasure of reading their comments whenever I say something negative. So I have met them. I've been blessed, and my point is, XRP has proven that it's got a potential for downside. And that community hasn't helped the previous times that it sold. When there is a rally, there can be corrections of 70-80%. And every time that there are those rallies, there are good fundamentals. They might not be as strong as the ones now, but my speculation is towards the side of, if that community wasn't able to hold that correction and just make it a humble one of 20-30%, why would it do it now when it comes to those speculators, the speculator side of this move? Because this move is driven by two: speculators and the community that has always been there. And they were there when price was 0.2, when it was 0.3. I was holding there, waiting and waiting and waiting. I was part of that community, you could argue, by forced, right? And I waited until my exit and I took the profits. And my question is, once it reaches the sweet spot, the sweet target, and there is some bearish things going on in the market that corrects Bitcoin, do we think that community that couldn't hold previous times the coin to correct 80% will do the same this time? My bet is no. But I don't have a crystal ball, and there are plenty of people more clever than me in the world that maybe they are going to be right, and they're going to just come to my Twitter and give me another blessing.
That's the first time, Mariano, that I've heard interaction with the XRP community be described as a blessing.
Well, I'm sure there's other communities out there which are probably even more vocal. I'm sure you may.
They're very passionate
as well. Very passionate. Yeah.
Now, Mariano, I know we're coming up on time. I don't want to keep you a lot longer, but I just want to. I'm curious to know. Like, obviously, as we've alluded to quite a few times, Monday's a big day for crypto. Trump is being inaugurated. We could be due to, it's probably going to be a fairly volatile weekend. Now, are you, as an experienced trader like yourself, are you looking at that sort of potential volatility and thinking, there could be some opportunities in here? Or is this the kind of scenario where you just sort of go, do you know what? I'm just going to sit back and watch this play out. What side of that coin are you more likely to fall on, do you think?
So a couple of weeks ago, I was just speculating. How are we going to approach the inauguration next Monday? How is it going to be the Trump event? And I had two alternatives. One, we get a Trump pump into the event. And then when we get to the event, there's something that shakes off the market and maybe a sell the news plays out. So we watch out for that. And plan B is we continue to sell off and until the event. And during the event, we start a rally because he says something really bullish, the opposite. It seems like we are in the Trump pump. And it seems that the levels of risk where we are now are getting quite elevated. I'm still in my swing trade open, but I'm pretty much observing how we react to that 103 and seeing what do we do after we consume the short-term liquidity, which we are looking at Ethereum now. But I'm looking at how do we react to that liquidity after we consume 103? Do we react very negatively and with a big rejection after that? Or is there still room for more? And based on that, I'm going to decide whether I keep my swing trade open. My long-term holding in Bitcoin remains there, still untouched. That I'm reserving for later in 2025 to make decisions for the good or the bad. But with the swing trade, it's a little bit quite risky at the moment. If we overcome 103, that I could envision that the Trump pump could get a lot more interesting if we get above 103 and we hold that closing on a daily basis. It could rally to 125. We don't know. There is liquidity. There is motivation to get as high as that. But having said that, keeping an eye with 103, if it becomes an ugly rejection or if it's just a stone in the way that we can just kick.
Okay. Well, it's certainly going to be an interesting weekend, and I think next week is. I mean, yeah, the Trump pump is real. We are on the precipice of kind of a new age in crypto. There's a lot of excitement about it. There's a lot of unknowns about it as well. We just don't know how this is going to play out. But it's so exciting to be kind of on the edge of that.
I'm just waiting for the executive action where he's going to make XRP the official reserve currency, replacing gold. No, the real standard, the XRP standard.
But once it's signed, how long does it take to actually get into execute as a reserve?
I don't know.
That will be an interesting question because sometimes something can be a sell the news even if it's a
I think that the reserve itself, I think he can make an executive action or specifically relates to Bitcoin, executive action, which could stop any potential sales of the current holdings. But when it comes to accumulation of further Bitcoin, this would take congressional legislation, which is a lot harder to do.
True.
Yeah. But
thank you very much, Mariano.
No worries.
Sorry.
I enjoyed it so much.
No.
Thank you.
No, it's been. Thank you very much, Mariano. It's been amazing analysis. Obviously, I know I've learned a lot. I think that the deep dives into these charts, and especially as it relates to the different range of technical indicators you use and how in depth your analysis is. And I can definitely see that this is your background has been informed from developing bots. We've learned a lot, and obviously very happy to have you on the Coin Bureau Trading channel. You're obviously providing a lot of alpha to our viewers. And guys, if you love these streams, of course, hit up those likes. And if you're not subscribed yet, why not? Do it right now. Hopefully we can do this again, man. I really appreciate it. And looking forward to Monday. I'm going to tune in.
And don't forget, there's a video coming on Sunday. I'm going to do an update on computer trading as well with Bitcoin analysis. So we will catch up over the weekend, guys, when it comes to BTC at least.
Cool. You guys know. So thanks again, mates. And of course, guys, if you like this, don't forget to subscribe. And hopefully we'll do this again with another one of the traders. Or as I said at the beginning, guys, if you're a trader, a streamer, or even if you just have a passion for crypto and you want to join the amazing journey we're on with Coin Bureau, the link will be down below to reach out. So have a good weekend, guys. Wag me.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.